my language, and so I'm gonna dedicate this one to Joe. If you had asked me a few years ago, I'd be like, I've never dedicated a poem to that man. I think and I always get nervous in front of new groups of people because I've been dropping the curse words since I could talk. I think I could cuss before I could walk, I don't know. So this one is called Ode to the Curse Word. Alternatively, the curse. Cussing is poetry, I swear. Maldición and revolución, unfiltered, uncensored, norm beyond explicit, ceremony, unacceptable taboo, timeless, disrupting performative civility, historically resilient, obscenity born of Renaissance, where honesty triggers absurdity, multi-layered stripping of humanity. As such, profanity, though proper at its core, when used accordingly, full stop, joy, succinctly sacred in its lyricality, dubbed, vilified, censored, bad, dirty, foul, illegal without warning, criminalized, the blasphemy to censor, the good of medicine, rebranded as brutality. I swear. And fuck ice. And they were like, yo, you're gonna have like a whole 20 minutes. It's like, I love the microphone. And then I was like, oh, I've been keeping my poems 2 minutes because usually it's like 3 minutes, 4 minutes, go. And what I have fun doing, playing with words, is I was shaped by the East Side. And it's a vibrant space to be in. It's a vibrant space to be shaped by. And we've got multi-layered lyricality. So sometimes my poems be sounding like rap lyrics. Sometimes they be sounding like I'm just carrying residuals from when I used to have to read in church because my mom made me. And all that to say, this one is called Atepec. It's a Nahuatl term for community, town, or pueblo. And I originally wrote this one in Spanish. And as much as I love reading it in Spanish and sometimes making my monolingual English speakers uncomfortable, I feel like my English speakers need to hear this one because we are in dire need of allyship and we have seen what is happening to folks who we are not used to seeing get shot in the face for standing up. So, a lot of my poetry is remembering who the hell we are, regardless of where we come from. So finally, the damn poem, right? I fell in love with community, in love with our humanity, reflecting by way of this soliloquy, amazed by all of our dignity, made hopeful by an abundance of possibility, grounded in grappling with our reality within the context of such hostility, the imposition of unjust inequality, and the grief of our weeping against this reality, recalling our erasure and how easy it is to fall into forgetting the legacy of our dignity. And I wonder, what of our children if we held firm to our roots and the power of memory, remembering that tears are sacred and crying is a sacred act of humanity that makes present the fullness of our dignity. A world where poetry belongs to us, an unbound legacy beyond the confines of time and space, where vivid dreams exist unbound, shape-shifting our shared reality, tending to and remembering, harvesting, recovering, reclaiming, declaring, singing with audacity. We are the people, indomable, of poetry, love, and liberty. Thank you. usually read my poems on my phone, so I'm getting used to the analog here. For a long time, I was like, damn, I'm the angry lady in the room. And everybody's like, you know, talking about trees and shit, but I'll get back to that in a second. And before I get to the trees and shit, I want to talk about the neighborhood where my abuelita's house was. The neighborhood that I also understand now to have shaped my father. So inevitably, regardless of where I am, it's not just because I co-founded Eastside Magazine. That shit's just a recuerdo, a love letter, you know, a disruption in space and time, an invitation for you all to step into your audacity and tell stories when you've been told otherwise. And that itself is a whole damn epic poem. So I wrote this one for the plaza. In Mayfair, somos raíz, flor, fuego, and heart, where generations of story are held in every perfectly imperfect sidewalk crack, holding resilience past the story of the land, where palm trees greet the sun, reminding us to reach for the sky, bear witness to who we've become. In Mayfair, somos raíz, flor, fuego, and heart, where streets hum with vibrancy, cumbias, Aztec drums, rock and hip hop at dusk. Con arte, cultura, folclórico, mariachi, teatro, and poesía. While danzantes and murals reactivate a legacy, where jardines bloom from stories of our collective fuerza. And Mayfair.
Recording stopped.
Los asusté. Somos raíz, flor, fuego, and heart, where lowriders roll proudly, beautifully brown and down, colorfully protected by abuelita prayers, as elders tend to our collective memories with roses grown through chain link fences, extending community, cariño, of front yard nichos and handmade altares to the vibrant ritmo de resistencia. Fuck, I'll say it again a few times. You know when you grow up and you're like, who am I? And everybody wants to tell you the story of who you are and who your people are. And I've had the great joy of being surrounded by many strong women. And so sometimes
Recording in progress.
This is worth documenting. Gotta talk about birth and rebirth. And it's funny because my biggest annoyance is when men in our community sometimes are like, women are so sacred because you can give birth in your womb. And I'm like, fuck my womb once a month until perimenopause. But just thinking about, you know what, how do we give birth in other ways? And how do we birth ourselves and each other by all of our different love languages? And sometimes our love languages are hostile as fuck. And that is okay. Reborn from a constellation of women, each with their own worlds carried on their shoulders, women who carry wisdom in the patches of roughness within their hands, lines that have settled into the roundness of their faces, marking no distinction between where tears of laughter and sorrow flowed out of them, pouring tenderness into the world. Some of them with laugh lines that have carried rivers of tears. Some of them wore aprons to tend to all the mending, wiping their hands on their thighs to get to the business of birth. Gracias. And does homegirl have like 7-page poems that I could have just thrown down that and then like a couple? Yes. But the short ones wanted to speak today. And I think they needed to speak to me. Because January's been rough on a personal level, on a family level, on a collective society level. And so I was like, what do I need to hear for myself? Because I think I started writing to myself. And so reaching back, the poems will morph, right? And I share this and I talk a lot between poems to encourage you. If my meandering ass can get this together and go and learn from some of the grades. And Richard Blanco's like, you can't take yourself that seriously. And I'm like, okay, Coach Ray, right? you're out there writing in secret, bring it out here. We need to hear it. We need that medicine. So, getting to the business of the business. This one doesn't have a name. And a lot of times I'll write and name them later, and I'll read them like 70 times and then I'll find a name. So this one does not have a name. There are moments that taste like copper, swirled with disappointment, heartbreak, and a tinge of blood. Feels like intergenerational rage carried in my rib cage, where there isn't enough comfort food to feed the hunger. So I scream in silence. The long buried stories of pain that repeat across space and time aren't allowed to see the light because what will people say? Whose mythologies will be shattered by those chronically untimely revelations? And nobody needs to know. And so the cycle goes on and on and on and on, like a pinche record on repeat, unaware of the B-side. But mija, just leave it alone. So we carry each other in the clandestine revelations of dark brown and gray hues, rustling, movement, unrest, a constant tension held in the shoulders of women who hold back their fullness with half breaths. Tight shoulders, missing the intergenerational medicine of simpleness. A suspiro completo. She takes a stick and pokes at the earth, wonders, what would happen if we dug up the soil to let it just breathe? She dusts herself off, swallows the taste of copper, swirled with disappointment, heartbreak, and a tinge of blood, puts on her red lipstick, and aligns her spine. Her 3 daughters are waiting in the car, and they've taken the liberty of keeping that shit running. Since I conjured the trees earlier, I write about trees all the time, and still, the trees get like, they're like salty. They're like, girl, yes, write about us. And I'm like, but I want to write about like trees, like, oh, the trees, they're so beautiful, and the birds are chirping, and I am just sitting under the shade in solitude. But I can't do it. So this one is called, She Wishes She Could Write Poems About Trees, But I am timeless, twisted, gnarled, and mangled menace with an origin story that reaches roughly 56 million years back. Master of migration, rooted in land, ushering green lusciousness, bristle-tipped leaves, hazy hauntings of twilight, as wind whistles through and owls ominously coo. I am longevity, strength, stability too, lifetimes combined to 35 million trips around the sun. Seems like an abstraction to speak of me as endurance, fertility, power, justice. Honestly, the honesty, robustly rugged and rumored to have been complicit in racial atrocities, terror of brutalities of roping me beyond symbolically, as I too wept. Those bodies lost their lives on me. Those lynchings weren't because of me. Used on record and off conveniently, stripped of relationality, disconnected, framed causality. I am beautiful curiosity, nostalgic whimsicality, anchor of memories too, embracing playfulness and spontaneity, cradling children across seasons of cheerful glee, swinging joyfully on tires, whispering life to relatives, tenderly shading our elders from the heat of the sun, banding in relationality, kinship beyond bloodlines, land, relatives. So, I release you from carrying the burden of me, timeless, twisted, gnarled, mangled menace. Longevity, strength, stability too. Beautiful curiosity, nostalgic whimsicality, anchor of memories too. Release you, uncomplicatedly and genuinely give you permission to write about me in full superficiality. Pretend we've never spoken in the language of branches. See me as nothing more than an old oak tree. To the end, but I gotta put some playfulness in it, because otherwise y'all are gonna be like, girl, you still the angry brown woman in the room. And I'm like, I can walk in with a peacoat looking like the biggest nerd, and I'm still gonna get dubbed that, so I might as well play the part, because it is necessary. But this one's a little more playful, to some degree. And it's called Iron Strength. I've had it with being left behind, unplugged, out of place. This time on the cold countertop, last week on the squeaky brown couch. I'm just an old iron anyway. Faded yellow with the faulty switch light, passed down from a thrift store find. The cousin with the gray Walkman, she came to live with them last summer. Her favorite place to forget me? The pinche living room, where she choreographs dances with homegrown daycare group, feeds them fish sticks, brilliance, Prince soundtracks on loop. The sweet caramel-colored toddler, always with the sticky hands. Her favorite place to forget me, buried in the laundry basket. After shoving candy in all my little plate holes, blocking all my steam. At least that saves me from the racket of pressing grandpa's underpants. Sometimes I see the mom, furrowed brow, stares at me in judgment with a dash of disdain. Her favorite place to forget me? Upstairs in the closet, dusty, disheveled, disarrayed. She's too busy with work, raising 4 damn kids anyway. Doesn't like to cook, either way. Today, I see the long-haired girl, the mom and cousin, braiding her jet black, unruly Silvestres tresses, each one tackling the side, wrangling strands in hands, like reins in the kitchen at that, struggling as the girl keeps herself from screaming and running. The girl doesn't forget me. She tenderly tucks me away, alongside her secondhand books, sings lullabies, wraps wishes into each loop of my cord, finds us both a place where nothing is forgotten. I still got time. Yeah, we're not there. Oh my God.
I don't have much.
Give me with the umbrella. This one's short and sweet, because, you know, this body has been through some stuff. And I think when we think about our plants, we think about that healing power they carry. So this one is called, My Body is a Saguaro Cactus. I used to think my body was a saguaro cactus. They say they can be shot full of holes and still survive, resilient in the most hostile conditions, withstand brutality, home to a variety of nests, sprout flowers, fruit, and flesh, sustain with minimal sustenance. I stare at the photo on screen, see the saguaro toppled over, dead from the severity of the heat. As I realize, shit, her heavy arms will continue to give life in the desert long after she's gone. Then we got Good Medicine. This one is from a forthcoming anthology that's taken its damn time to get here, but I can't even be mad because it's called Anger is a Gift, and it was supposed to come out at the beginning of this fucking term, but here we are, so maybe we need it now. We'll see. And it's one of those poems where I'm never gonna do right by it, because when you see it on the page, you can read it like this, or you can read it like this. But I'm gonna read it like this, because that's what it wants today from me. She rubs her finger tenderly over the smooth moonstone, hums a medicine song in honor of the buffalo, sweeps away the darkness, reminds her to look for the rabbit who makes her home in the moon, takes the child's face in her withered hands, smudged with paint, cedar, and sage, whispers sacred poems formed before her days, wraps her shawl passed down and across, woven and embroidered beyond any loss, with intergenerational threads of resilience, snagged barbed wire fences, carrying the stories of her birth, tucks the tenderness of remembrance into every word as she taps on her forehead once more, wipes the nightmares away, speaks of cycles of belonging as barefoot women gather around. They gather around the fire in shared warmth, braiding sweetgrass as they sway in unison, sharing stories of Mother Earth. Tomorrow, she will run among relatives, smiling triumphantly as she greets the wilderness with poems and song tucked under her tongue. Thank you. And as my people say, párale, güey, but I'm gonna give you one last one. And I'm always pushing my students to like reach beyond their comfort zone, and then I'm like, I'm over here so comfy in my comfort zone. So I'm gonna practice what I preach. And this one's called Jardín de Flores. Day 1. A Huitzilopochtli yo le doy mis flores. From birth, we are primed to be in a constant state of war, coded litmus test of belonging, taught to always long for more. Day 2. A Huitzilopochtli le doy mis amores. Socialized to battle ourselves daily, expunging the grandeur of our core, complicitly blind to our inherent sovereignty, dismissing the power of folklore. Day 3. A Huitzilopochtli yo le doy mis flores. Excavating traumas beyond reservation, resettling the bounds of the ground floor, holding ourselves in preservation, discarding all pretense in order to soar. Day 4. A Huitzilopochtli yo le doy mis flores. A Huitzilopochtli le doy mis amores. Recalibrated. Recollections of remembrance, reconciling wholeness as we pour in atonement of spirited legacies worth relentlessly fighting for. Gracias.